Communication is the exchange of information. Whether we like it or not, we are communicating things all day, every day. And we can communicate orally, through writing, or non-verbally. Now, it is essential to become a good communicator, whether personally or professionally. And I'm going to give you a few ways that you can become a better oral communicator. Now, none of us are born with exceptional oral communicating skills. Oftentimes we might catch ourselves hearing someone speak in one-on-one conversation or in front of a large audience and sit in awe and say to ourselves, if only I could speak like that. Well, chances are that that person spent hours upon hours honing down his or her communication skills. And you and I can do the same thing. We can become better communicators without having to pay a professional thousands of dollars to teach us. Here are 3 simple techniques that can help you become a better oral communicator. First, read. Read your oral communication books. I know it may sound dry and boring, but those books actually do have some techniques that you can learn. For example, it can teach you to adjust your speech according to your target audience. For example, the size of the audience, the background of the audience. It can also even teach you how to adjust your speech according to the size of the auditorium. Is it big? Is it small? How do you speak in such a setting? Now, most college courses require that you read a book like this, but in my opinion, most of these things are common sense. And I had a professor at CCAC who taught oral communications, and he knew this. He taught us a new technique that isn't quite as boring, and in my opinion, far more effective. This technique is listening and taking notes while you're listening. Now, most of us will find it awkward if you're in a one-on-one conversation, the other person is taking notes while they're talking. That would be silly. What I would suggest is watching a video and taking notes while you're watching that video. Now, this is one of the many ways that YouTube has made life much better. Go on YouTube and type in the search box either speech or speaker, and literally hundreds of links will come up. Get a paper and pencil, draw a line down the middle, put a positive on one side and a negative on the other. And as you hear this person speaking, write down the things that make them a good speaker and the things that make them a bad speaker. Now, right away, some of these skills will jump out at you. They'll be very obvious. But I challenge you to make at least 10 things that make them good or bad. And try to make these 10 things, try to make them a numberable. For example, how often does this person move his arms? How often does he move his body? How does he change the volume whenever he says something important, or whenever he's talking about something that doesn't matter so much? What is the pace that this person talks that gets the point across but doesn't really drag things on? Now, this might be difficult at first to get 10 or more, but after a while you'll find yourself picking up on the little nuances that make a person a good speaker or a bad speaker. Now, what do you do once you have all of these skills written down? Practice, of course. I played football for 6 years, and those 6 years were full of grueling practices. It may sound strange, but most of those practices did not consist of practicing plays over and over again, but most of those practices consisted of pieces of plays. We would do things over and over again that seemed simple and elementary, and we would do them until we could do them without really thinking. That is because a football game consists of many different plays that only last 5 to 10 seconds long. And in those 5 to 10 seconds, you don't really have time to think. You just sort of react to what you've learned in practice, and you sort of piece together those little parts that you've learned. I think the same thing applies with speaking. Now, it would be very strange if you thought about every single word you said before you said it. but I think it's important to practice in such a manner. And one of the reasons is you notice that when speaking with lawyers, they're very good at speaking. This is because they have to think about every single word they say, and they have to be very careful about the words they choose. Now, of course, again, it would sound very awkward if, when you're speaking to someone one-on-one, that you thought about every single word you said. It would be very awkward. So next time you are alone or in your car, practice speaking. And practice speaking while thinking about every word that you're speaking. So pick a topic and sort of simply think about the words you say before that you say them. So if you want to become a better communicator, practice these 3 simple steps. First, read. Second, listen and take notes. And third, practice.